property. The agent's got a couple more homes, and then the buyer is going to fly out or drive out to look at the top one or two homes that they've selected.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And those are the kind of things I want to talk about next week with you and a handful of other agents that we share with thousands of agents across the country. How do you do this in this market, and what do you do to keep your business moving forward? So, hey, we're going to go ahead and get started. What I am going to do is mute out all the participants. And if you have a question or you want to say something, you want to contribute to the conversation, just simply unmute yourself. You're not going to bother me. This is not, I don't have a PowerPoint that I'm showing. I'll be drawing here and there on my Elmo. But I really perceive this to be a conversation style book club going through Shift. And I know that there's a course and there's PowerPoints and all that kind of cool stuff, but I think where we are right now in the real estate community, I think it's so important whether you're at, we have people that are all over the world that are on this Zoom call right now, not just all over the country. And really we're facing this global crisis with the virus. And then we have this economic shift that's happening. And it has people scared, and it's okay to be scared. And it's why I wanted to really do this this book club, because as I was hearing feedback from agents, the big thing they were saying was how scared they were, and it could be overwhelming right now. And so I think of fear, and fear can really stand for two things. It can stand for forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. And you have to decide in your business how you're going to feel the fear and move forward anyway, because the reality is that fear is going to hit all of us, and we have a choice on how we're going to move forward through this and navigate through this together as a group. And I think when you look at as a group of realtors, we have realtors on this call too from all different companies, and so it's really important for you as an agent to say, you know, what am I going to do? And then the question that you should ask yourself is, what do I want my business to look like on the tail end of this? So we will come out of this. We will navigate through this shift. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what do I want my business to look like coming out of this? And then on top of that, what bridge do I need to build to make that happen? How do I close the gap? I have this objective reality right now of where my business is. Maybe you don't, and that's the first step, to get an objective reality. And that's the first tactic, get real, get right. And we'll talk about that today. And then how do you, once you have that objective reality, how do you put a plan in place to bridge the gap and moving from where you are to where you want to be, and you have clarity to where you want to be? What are the action steps that you have to take, even in a tough market? And what are top agents doing in this time to grow their business? And so throughout this next 12, 13 weeks, I'll be sharing with you, and I will post the recordings in our Shift Facebook group so that you can go back if you missed some, if you have to hop off. I get all that. If you just want to stay engaged in the conversation, and that's what the Facebook group is for too, so that we can extend the conversation outside of just a weekly quick Zoom meeting. I want you to think for a second about people in general. And as you think about that, you have most people are in this average zone. And then you have people on one side where they're focused on massive success, and another side, complete failure. Like everything is doom and gloom, and they just feel like their world has fallen apart. And most people fall into this category of being average. And so for you, it's really important that you make the decision, especially right now when you have a shifting market. You have the economic shift. You have virus, the crisis with the coronavirus happening everywhere. You have to make the decision that you're not going to put forth average effort. Because if you put average effort forth, then you're going to get average results. And it used to be that would be acceptable success for us. But in today's world, you have to have extra effort that you put forth. And right now, more than ever, you have to be extremely intentional, extremely purposeful about what you're doing in your business to navigate through this shift. I think it's also really important for you to get back to the basics, to the fundamentals. I played basketball in college. I played basketball all through biddy basketball all the way through college. And I'll never forget, when I got to college, I started thinking, what are our practices going to look like? Or are we going to be dunking it and just scrimmaging all day? And we start out by just doing basic drills that I had been doing since I was a little kid. And our coach would harp on mastering the fundamentals. And it's important for you to master the fundamentals of the real estate business. So don't get away, even though we're talking about shift, I think it's really important in the beginning of shift. They start out talking about the 4 models. So you have the economic model, and I would master this model, especially right now, because most people, they are overspending in their expenses. They're expense heavy, and as a result, now the shift is going to catch them, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, I've got way too much money coming out. You got to have a good, solid economic model and budget model. So when we come down and then we look at the lead gen model, what are we doing? And today we're going to talk about the roles, the different roles that people are doing in your team, in your organization, or that you need to take back over if you have a team. And if you're an individual agent, then it's how do I put forth extra effort? And you have your budget model, and this is where we want to really make sure that we're managing our expenses and the money that's coming in, especially right now. You want to get lean and mean, and then your organizational model. So these are your basic 4 foundational models of the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, the Red Book. And you want to master these models as you're navigating through this shift. And then once you master, as you're working on mastering these models, it's really important for you to take the tactics and shift. In the tactics and shift, the first one deals with mindset, and then the rest of them deal with actions. What action steps do I need to be taking to navigate through this market? So before we kind of dive into this, I'd love a couple of you to just unmute yourselves and share what your biggest concerns are. What are you nervous about? What are you scared about? What are you excited about? And know that it's okay to be nervous and scared and concerned right now. But what are you nervous about? What are you concerned about in your business? And what are you most excited about getting out of this book club?
Hey Jonathan, I'll go. So I think one for me is I'm a new agent, and I think one of the things I'm most nervous about is everyone talks about contacts and METs. So I think one of the challenges that I'm really struggling with is to get those contacts and METs and still drive numbers, because I'm so new. My database isn't as large as everyone's, where I have the opportunity to, call on my database and do a lot of that. My database is really small and succinct. So I'm so nervous that, Bold 100s were an easy way to do that. Go out and go to a football game and meet 100 people. That was no problem. Go out to places and be social and really have that opportunity. So I'm really struggling or nervous about how I continue to provide value, but as a new agent, grow my database through this market.
Yes, I love that. And we're actually going to share how you do that. So over these next 12 weeks, especially the next week, we'll really dive into what do you do right now to build your database, and not only build your database, but stay in dialogue with the people in your database. How do you love on them and stay front and center? And then how do you leverage some key tools, technology-wise, to help you do that as well? Who else would be willing to share?
Hey, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I think my biggest concern is I have maybe 9 or 10 things under contract. I have yesterday 2 fell through. because of people losing their jobs. One of them was supposed to close tomorrow. So that has me a little on edge maybe. So that's a fear. But then again, I've probably shown 7 houses this week. I have a listing appointment today, and I'm writing an offer on another one. So, I mean, it's like mixed emotions, I guess.
Sure. No, I understand completely. And I think those are valid fears. You know, you are going to have a lot of people who have lost their income, which is really, really, it's a sad thing that has happened. But at the same time, you have to navigate through helping those people, loving on those people, and being in their world so that when they're back in a position to buy a home, or maybe they were trying to sell their home and now they're figuring out how do they what things could they be doing, refinancing their home right now, what steps could they take to put themselves in a position to protect their assets so that when this passes, you're back in their world and you can be the hero by helping them. And then there are a lot of people out there that aren't going to lose their job, but they're still going to want to purchase homes. They're still making decisions. They're still living life as normal. And it's important that you keep yourself mentally healthy so that you can navigate through this and help them. Let's get one more person to share. What are you most concerned about? What are you nervous about in this shift that you're seeing happen in real time?
So I have a concern and an excitement. So my excitement is that I can't wait till this is done. And if I'm able to do all of the things I need to do to love on as many people as I can and be that person in the community constantly, when this all goes away, I won't be a person like, who are you? It'll be like, oh my God, I've been seeing you all along through this journey, doing all these things in the community, being a community connector, and really being able to grab business that way. However, my concern is, from what I'm understanding on what's happening, and I know news can be crazy and all that, but I don't know if this is going to end anytime soon. And the more I'm learning and understanding how long this is actually going to take to pass is frightening.
Sure. Yeah, every day we're hearing new information, and I think you have to make sure how you're filtering that information out, and then that you're communicating to the people in your database how they do the same thing, because the big thing you're fighting in a shift, especially in this kind of shift, is fear. You know, it's people panicking. They go to the grocery store and they see nothing. It's empty shelves everywhere, or they see empty streets, and they see they turn on the news and they hear it's this constant negative news, and that can overwhelm somebody. And so it's really, those are all valid concerns. And I saw one in the chat box about daycare and how do I navigate through. And I think it's really, really important that you get yourself in a position where you can leverage technology to help you do as much virtual as you can. I'm meeting with agents on a daily basis. This is probably, I'm not even kidding you, I've been on Zoom meetings back to back since 8 o'clock this morning, and leverage tools to help you. It might be that you need to meet via FaceTime or via Zoom or Facebook messaging, and do virtual open houses, virtual home tours, FaceTiming your clients or Facebook video messaging your clients, because that catches them off guard, and they almost always answer that when I use that tool. And just to check on them and let them know you care about them and you love them, bring in the human compassion side, not just the crush them, sell real estate side. And it's really important for you to make sure that you stay connected. I see some other chats, and I'm going to do my very best to manage those and answer questions, but also I want to make sure that we keep our conversation moving forward. so that we cover the tactics that we need to today. How do you navigate through this with kids and you're working from home? I get it. That's a difficult thing to do. I have a 20-year-old and he's always running around the house and crying. And no, I'm playing. He's on this call. That's why I said that. He's downstairs. But I have a 16-year-old son and I have a 2-year-old little girl. My little girl is running all over the house, and I have a dog that is 8 months old, and I'm trying to corral her, and everyone's inside, and it gets stressful. And I think people understand the time that we're in. So I've been on some calls and said, hey, listen, I've got my little girl with me, and yesterday I had to meet with an agent, and I said, hey, I've got my little girl with me. My wife and son ran out to the store, so you're just going to have to deal with me also working with my daughter. And it's all about setting and managing expectations. So hopefully you have the book Shift. If you don't, you want to order it, get the Kindle version, because Amazon's only shipping you essential items right now, and they're not going to count this as essential. Or you can get the Audible version of it. If you go to Amazon, not Audible, and then select the audiobook format, it's free right now. So you can download the Audible version for free and listen
I'm
to.
good. How are you?
Hey, I can't see who's talking, but I'm going to try to mute everyone again. If you make sure that you mute out your microphones for me, that'd be great. But you want to make sure that you're reading through Shift. And then again, this is a conversation. I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm not here presenting as a teacher. I'm here just facilitating a conversation to help agents figure out together how to navigate through this kind of unprecedented shift that we're having. And so when you look in the first part, I'm on page 7. And when you think about shifts, understand real estate is cyclical, right? We get that. We know that. And you can look at these seasonal shifts, and you guys have all experienced these seasonal shifts. You're in March, usually you have fewer sales, but then your sales kind of ramp up. And August is kind of a high point for your sales. So you're making money right here, and you're also able to sock away money so that when you have these downshifts, these where it kind of slows down, this is November, right? This is where agents typically begin to shut down, and they're not doing anything. Try to get agents to do something after Thanksgiving, but your successful agents are working their butt off, and you see it ramp back up. My mother has been an agent for 48 years. And she'll tell you that December is always one of her busiest times of the year because she just simply answers her phone and she works. So we're used to these seasonal cycles, and your most successful agents know when they're making money, they need to be saving money because there's always going to be kind of a lull in the market in certain parts of the season, and then it picks back up. And they can predict that, and they can base that's why it's good to have a good economic model and a budget model, because you can then predict how you're going to manage and spend your money over the course of the year so that you don't find yourself making a bunch of money. Usually most agents make a bunch of money and they're like, oh, I'm going to go buy me a new purse or some new shoes or a new briefcase or whatever it is. And they go spend that money, and then they have some months where the market kind of slows down a little bit. There's not as many sales, and they go, oh my gosh, I need to get some things going on. And these shifts, these seasonal shifts for your professional agents, they don't catch them off guard. They're ready for them. They're prepared for them. And then you have these economic shifts. And when you think about the economic shifts, the economic shift is I was talking to Gary the other day, and he said, the reality with this kind of shift is a seasonal shift is predictable, it's manageable. Economic shift can be unpredictable and can feel overwhelming and can feel really kind of downright scary. And I get that 100%. So these shifts are always going to happen. And they happen when there is this supply and demand that move out of balance. And on page 8 and 9, Shift talks about that. It talks about the difference in the markets. It talks about the anatomy of a shift. And so when you have supply and demand that kind of move out of balance, so you're maybe in a seller's market and then you're shifting to a buyer's market, or you're in a buyer's market and you're shifting to a seller's market, and it's not a balanced market, That's when these shifts are happening. And what real estate agents need to do is understand they're there, but they also need to be prepared for them and ready for them. Now, what we're experiencing right now, I think we've experienced similar things, but nothing on this level where I'm from Louisiana. I live in Austin and Phoenix right now. Those are the two cities I kind of commute back and forth. But in Louisiana, we have hurricanes. And we're ready for those. And we know hurricane season, and it's impacted us. And I was telling my son, I said, the reality is that in a hurricane, you see it impact us in a region, in an area, like the Gulf states. But now what you're seeing is something happen, or we had floods. We had the great flood in Louisiana a few years ago, and it impacted our market drastic, big time impact in our market. It impacted that area. What you're seeing now is impacting our world, and you're seeing the economy kind of be shaken up as a result and correcting itself. And so these shifts, when these kind of shifts happen, all of a sudden fear kind of runs rampant, and everybody doesn't respond the same way. And so you have some people they feel the fear, but they also know that there's an opportunity. And so I want you to think of the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people are going to go out there and get 80% of the business right now. Another thing that's important in a shift that you have to understand is, and this is pretty much common sense. When there's lots of business, what else is there in our market? What do you guys think? Lots of business. What do you have more of?
Lots of
agents.
Lots of competition. Lots of agents. And all of a sudden, when business gets tough, what do you have?
Even more competition?
Well, you would say more competition, and maybe in the beginning, but what do you really have when it starts getting tough?
People leaving the market.
Yeah, people exiting the business and getting out of the business. And Gary talks about this on pages 13 and 14. He talks about surviving and thriving. And surviving meaning if you find yourself in this competitive market, you got lots of agents, lots of competitors, just because there's lots of business to go get, and everybody wants to become a real estate agent. After Hurricane Katrina, a funny thing happened. Everybody wanted to get their real estate license because Baton Rouge, in my market, wasn't impacted like New Orleans was. And so anyone who had money was moving to Baton Rouge, and their homes had been destroyed, and they were purchasing homes with cash, and they were willing to pay more than a home was worth. And we would literally call people, and we would say, hey, I can sell your house today and probably get you 50 grand more than what it's worth. Do you want to sell it? Now, those people had a difficult time going somewhere when they sold their home, but they were selling their homes. I sold my house, and I lived in a motorhome for 6 months to let the market kind of calm down, just because I had someone knock on my door and say, hey, I'll pay cash for your house. All these people were moving to Baton Rouge, and for several months, our market was like crazy. In a positive way, even though it was a sad situation. And everybody was trying to get their real estate license and get in the business. Then we kind of started to have a shift that happened, and the market started to correct itself. And all of a sudden, agents had to work. They weren't order takers anymore, and they had to actually take action and work to get business and lead generate. So we saw this steep decline in the amount of licensed agents. And that is always typical in this business. And Gary talks about that, the law of equilibrium, on pages 13 and 14. And when he talks about survive to thrive, I think right now, like, what does that mean to you guys? You hear that phrase, survive to thrive. Who would share what that means to you?
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay.
Survive to thrive. Well, to me, I'm super young. I'm 20, and I'm in this business, and it's like, if I can just get by, I'm constantly building my systems. I'm constantly building my business. There's so many things to do. So if I can just survive and I can see 6 months ahead, I have a plan in place, financial model, and business end on the opposite end. You know, just surviving is thriving with what we do.
Who else would share? I love that. Who else would share? What does that mean to you?
I'm happy to jump in there, Jonathan.
Sure.
In the first last week, I cut $47,000 a month out of my business expenses.
Wait, say that one more time because I want people, I know this, but I want people to hear this.
Last week, I cut $47,000 a month off my business expenses alone, just my business expenses, $47,000 a month.
Yeah.
I did 5.2 million in GCI last year. I know what my P&Ls are. I know what my expenses are. I know what my overhead is. I understand the models. And I know that you have to take extreme drastic measures, both personally and professionally, financially, so that you can safe harbor yourself and be in this for the long haul. Now, I'm not giving up market share. I'm not surrendering. I really reallocated funds so that I could leverage still a lot of the things that I'm doing and stay relevant in the marketplace. But it doesn't have to be a glamour show. I don't need to be in 6 pages of every magazine. I can be in 1 page, page 3, premium placement. I've gone back to my vendors. Most of my vendors have cut my agreements in half financially or almost to zero. They've said, hey, we're in this with you. You're a loyal, long-time client of ours. We understand. We'll suspend payments for 90 days or forego them completely. And you've got to do the same thing in your personal life. You know, I've told my kids, we're empty nesters. I told my wife, I said, look, we've got houses out there with our kids living in them that, you know, I could use for other purposes. We may not be empty nesters for the remainder of 2020. You know, so you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first and make sure that you've got the staying power. You've got to expect 90 days where, you know, you may not get a commission check or 75% of your transactions aren't going to go through, and you just got to be prepared for that. I've been through it, 25 years in the business, so it's not my first time having to pull the parachute and land safely. So start with your expenses. Start with your immediate personal expenses and your business expenses, and cut everything that's not necessary.
Now, I remember, Andrew, like right when this started happening last week, I mean, I don't even think it was this. It was probably maybe Friday or potentially Monday. You had sent me a message and you said, man, this is what I've cut. I just cut all this out. Why was it important for you to take action so quickly versus thinking about taking action?
Well, back in 06, 07, 08, 09, 010, 011, like a lot of people, we thought the crisis would end much sooner. The housing crisis, the economic collapse of the mortgage industry. And, you know, it took me 2 years before I realized that it was fight or flight. And 2 years I was carrying $40,000 a month on loans on vacant land. And so 40 grand a month after 2 years, there's $1 million I was never going to recapture, but you thought it would recover and you were doing the right things. So having gone through that, and there's a lot of young people on the call, a lot of people that haven't been through, these crises before.
Hey, Andrew, hold on 1 second, because I can't see who's talking, but I'm going to mute everyone and then unmute you.
Okay. I know Jonathan's trying to. So I've been in the business for 25 years, and back in the 08 collapse of the market, I was optimistic. I thought, you know what, this will last 3 months or 4 months, no big deal. And I just kept writing checks and writing checks and writing checks and writing checks and writing checks until I ran out of checks. It took 2 years to run out of checks, and I said, I just fed the alligator. And the alligator is going to eat me. So, with this crisis, I was right on it. Immediately recognized that our transactions are going to go down, our commissions are going to go down, and in order for me to be able to have staying power, I've got to maintain certain expenses that I absolutely have to have. Payroll, very important. You know, I have to feed my people, and I cut out 47 grand last week of overhead in my business. And from a percentage standpoint, to give you an idea, I probably dropped, you know, off my overhead about 50%, not counting some salaries. So, you know, still staying very relevant in the community, you know, but doing it in a different conversation or context or social media and other platforms. And you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and you got to do it right now. You can't wait. You can't wait. If you've got office expenses and overhead, and you've got to, you know, whatever it is, you've got to cut those things immediately. And if you don't think you've got the cash savings for at least 90 days, stop making your mortgage payment. If you don't have that in reserves, if you don't have 90 days to be able to survive, then right now you take an immediate action, and you stop paying anything that's not going to put food on the table immediately. I mean, you just don't have a choice. Stop making your car payment, stop making your mortgage payment, whatever you need to do to get, if you don't have 90 days worth, because what's going to happen is you're going to burn up that 90 days worth of capital, whatever you've got in, you've got 30 days to live on or 60 days of cash to live on, or you don't have resources to get you through the 90 days, you better take really swift, immediate action and understand that, hey, you know what? Everybody in the world is going through the same thing. I remember when short sales started, all of us remember this. People didn't want to short sell. It was a social stigma, and then it became social norm, and it was okay. We all found health and healing in the comfort knowing that it wasn't just me, it wasn't just you, it wasn't just my neighbor. It was everybody was affected by it, and there was comfort in that. And then there was relief that came from the federal government, just as you'll find some relief today. When people's credits crashed, we looked for ways to find financing. I'll tell you, one of the best things that ever happened to me was spending 10 years not being able to use credit. Learning how to live on cash. I've been on cash since probably 2008. Cash only. Everything I do is cash. There's no credit cards. All the debt I have is, you know, either mortgages on properties that I have rented. You know, I can hunker down and I can bear down and I can get through 90 days pretty well. But cutting 47 grand a month out of my expenses, I just saved 150 grand over the next 90 days, right?
Yeah.
So you have to hunker down. If I've got to tighten the screws even more, if this thing, which we think it will get worse before it gets better, the 47 grand was just a start. But thank goodness I took the initiative to do it, and just do it. Just realize that, you know, here we are, we're sitting in the middle of March. If you've already made your March payment, you've made your March payment. If you haven't made your April payment, you better look at, could you have the ability to survive April, May, and June without any income, or with very little income? Because that's the reality of it. So you've got to look at that and go, and you've got to take immediate action. And, you know, we're so blessed to have this community around us in Keller Williams and Shift and all of the great leaders that have been through this before. You know, we heard it from Gary, right? Four economic crises that he's been through. And you know, we have to hunker down. My kids are all adults. They're all out of the house. They said, Dad, what do you mean we might have to move home? We're living on our own. Well, you're not living on your own. There's some support there, right? And so, yeah, drastic times to, you know, call for drastic measures. That's what it is. And if you need to know what those drastic measures are, you do everything in your power to make sure that you're preserving all of your financial assets. It's capital preservation. That's the only way you're going to get through this. And you know, I feel pumped up. I feel in control. I feel secure. I feel confident. I'm excited. I'm able to lead my team. I'm able to lead the mission. I'm able to lead my family. I'm able to lead with confidence, knowing that we've been here before, and I'm taking immediate action and the right steps to make sure that I'm mitigating any long-term effects on this for as long as possible. You know, it's not a time to sell assets. I've got real estate I could sell right now and dump to put cash in the bank.
Yeah.
I look back, I wish I never, ever relinquished any of that real estate, right? Some of the real cash flow producing properties that I did dump to get me out of the hole that I was in in 08, 09, and 010. So, I'm thankful I'm not in dirt. I'm in single family homes that can be rented. They can be rented long term. There's going to be a need for more rental properties as we're going to see this shift. So, I have a lot of confidence in what we're doing as an organization, as a team. It all starts from the top, and I'm blessed to be a part of it. So if anybody needs any help trying to figure out what to cut and what not to cut or when to cut, reach out to us. I mean, there's a lot of resources within our organization for people that have been through this, and there's actually some webinars this week that have touched specifically on reducing your overhead.
Awesome. I love that, Andrew. And thank you for sharing. I'm going to mute out the lines again, and I'm going to ask Paul to unmute. He just posted something in the chat directly from Shift, a quote from Gary. And before he does, man, so having people like Andrew on here, that wasn't planned. That was just Andrew participating and being willing to share, and you guys just getting to hear from someone who's running a team where they generated $5.2 million in gross commission income last year, and he's telling you, I cut $47,000 in expenses a month. And if that didn't sink in with you, people making millions of dollars who are going, I'm cutting expenses, I'm preparing myself so that I can thrive. It goes back to this image. This is what we're talking about. It's on page 14 of Shift. But it's basically, how do you position yourself to survive this period of time where there's a lot of people competing for business, and then they're going to fall off. And if you can hang in there, the resilience factor, if you can hang in there and make it through this next few months and stay focused and gain clarity to what you want in your business and clarity to what action steps you need to take, and then you make the commitment to take those necessary action steps, you then position yourself to thrive. You put yourself in this position to win and take advantage of an opportunity. So either people are looking right now and they're seeing problems, or they're seeing opportunities. They're either running from something or running towards something. And so I want to challenge you to run towards this shift and positioning yourself to make the necessary changes so that you are able to survive this shift. And then once you're able to survive it, you're now able to capitalize and thrive in this market. Paul, would you mind reading what you just shared a few minutes ago in the chat?
Sure, absolutely. If you can ride out this initial lag period, as more and more people get out of the business, you can find yourself in a less competitive market. There is now more business relative to the number of people working to get at it. This is the time to thrive. How long it takes to get from survive to thrive can vary greatly from time to time and person to person. There is the market shift in its lag time, and there is your shift and your lag time. If you don't shift fast, your lag time will parallel the market and you may be at risk. To thrive in the upshift, you must first survive the downshift. Let's be clear, there is nothing that says that an agent cannot thrive before the market upshifts. In fact, we have known and worked with many agents who have had the best years in their down market. This book is based on lessons learned from those agents who have actually accomplished this. Here's the truth. Not everyone will, but anyone can.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Paul. And the reality is that in order to survive, you have to shift gears. You got to make a decision to think differently about how you've been doing business, especially right now, because we're going to have to get real creative in how we do business. But you've got to shift gears. And the two areas you go, well, how do I shift gears? How do I do that? The two areas that help you shift gears are this mental shift and this action shift. And when you think of the mental shift, it's how do I position myself to adopt the right mindset. And in Shift on page 23, Gary moves into talking about the mental side of this game. Some of us have experienced not being prepared for a shift and how difficult it was. And some of us on this call have had great financial losses. But at the same time, we still made it through it. We're still here. And it just positioned ourselves to navigate through the next shift and be able to do it smarter and wiser. And so you have to realize that your whole world, our lives, are fashioned by the choices that we make. And every day we're making choices, and those choices that we make define us, they make us, and we become our choices. So you have to decide, what am I going to choose to do today? It starts with that first question I asked you. What do you want your business to look like on the tail end of this? And then the first tactic and shift is get real, get right, mindset and action. So get real is, how do I have this objective reality? Where am I right now? What's happening in my market right now? Where's my business? What do my expenses look like? How much am I really bringing in? What do I need to do in reality check to survive this next 90 days and put myself in a position to make it through it? And then you have to get right on the right actions. What are the action steps that I need to take in order to survive this? So Gary calls it moving from inspiration to perspiration, where you go, okay, I've been inspired. I'm hearing these great agents and what they're doing, but now I need to put some sweat equity behind it. I need to roll up my sleeves, get in the trenches and work my butt off and double, triple, quadruple my effort, do whatever it takes to navigate through this and make a commitment to be resilient and persevere through this next difficult coming months, so that I position myself to grow my business and move it forward. And I think the reality is new strategies are required. I was talking to Gary Keller this morning, and I shared some bullet points with him, and his response back to me was, move fast, like lightning fast. And I want you to think outside the box in ways that you never have before. Think different about how you're doing business. And he talks about that as I was thinking about our conversation, and I'm reading Shift, preparing for working through the book with you guys. He says in the book, new strategies are required. New action is critical. When a shift occurs, confusion follows. And so you have to make sure when confusion follows that you keep fear at bay. And the way that you keep fear at bay is through your mind and body, and being like mentally ready and aware, and you're able to feel that fear and move forward anyway. Move forward in spite of that fear. Take action in spite of that fear. And then he says you do it by rethinking, restructuring, refreshing, re-energizing, and reinventing yourself and your business. So you can't control the market, but what you can do is control how you act or react in these shifts. You can control how you're going to guard your mind, and you can control the action steps that you take. I'm going to share one more thought. I'm going to break you guys into breakout rooms and let you chat for a few minutes on what are the top 3 things you feel. Doesn't matter right or wrong. What are the top 3 things you feel like you can be doing right now to help position yourself to gain market share in a shift that you're never going to lose, which someone just posted in the chat, by the way, too. You gain this market share in these shifts, and you never relinquish that. So here's the deal. You have to get really clear about what you want, clarity to it, and then you have to be really laser focused on what you need to do to take action. And the 2 key areas that I think if you have a team, if you're an individual agent, the 2 key areas you have to take complete ownership of in your business are lead generation and lead conversion. Those are the 2 areas. And Gary talks about this on page 26 and 28 of Shift. So you have to just figure out, okay, in this next 90 days, on top of like cutting my expenses to the core and getting lean and mean, how do I take ownership of lead generation and lead conversion? And what does that look like right now? How can I think differently about my lead generation? How can I think differently about lead conversion right now? So that, again, keep thinking back to surviving and thriving, so that I survive to put myself in a position to thrive. I'm going to break you guys into some breakout rooms. I want you to talk about that question. How do you take ownership of lead generation and lead conversion to put yourself in a position to move from surviving to thriving? And maybe in your groups, I'm going to try to break into groups of about 10, 8 to 10 people. And in those groups, talk about what are a couple of key things you could do right away. I'll bring all of you back, and let's have like maybe one spokesperson. Maybe won't be able to do it for each group time-wise, but let's have one person from each group say, hey, I'll be our spokesperson. We'll have 2 or 3 group leaders share what you took out of your breakout groups. That makes sense? So I'm going to put you in rooms. You're going to see a button on your screen, and it's going to ask you to join your room. And I'm going to work to keep it about 8 to 10 people in a room. Okay, here we go. And you should see a message pop up on your screen that says join room. Just click that and it's going to put you in a breakout room. No, I still see some of you guys in this room. Is it counting this as a breakout room? If you're in this room with me, I sent everyone to breakout rooms, but I'm about to call them back. You should have seen a little message pop up on your screen. But if not, it's okay. You can just hang out right here. I'm going to bring them back in just about a minute. All right, so everybody is popping back in, and we've got just a few more seconds. Zoom's going to automatically pop some people back in who don't click the button. Sending them all back in. Okay. So I see everyone hopping back in the room. I'd love to, first of all, how cool is it that you guys hopped in some rooms and were able to chat a little bit? Pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. I'm glad y'all got to do that. So what were a couple key takeaways? If a couple of the groups just unmute and you may have to, two people might be talking at the same time, someone stop and let the other person talk, but what were your discussions about in your groups? What were some of the conversation that came up?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. All right, cool. I was actually inside my group, but I didn't talk when my group was speaking. Yeah, so in the group we're saying that necessarily no one's gonna do the lead generation for us. So it's one of those things that we cannot like sit back and wait for somebody to make those phone calls or wait for somebody to go door knock on past clients. And that's something that really spoke to me because that's more so like actively generating instead of just letting a dialer go. And then if you pick somebody up, you go through the appointment, but it's different when you actually go talk to the past client. So I felt like that was very powerful on the group.
Awesome.
That I'm truly grateful.
Okay.
Hey,
Who
what's
else?
up, guys? It's David. How you doing, Jonathan?
Good, David.
Hey, good to see you, sir. So, one of the things we talked about in our group is really getting back to the basics of getting in touch with our database and those people that we haven't talked to in a long time. And I've spent the last 3 days, calling all those people in the database. And interestingly, some of the people I've talked to, I haven't talked to in like 9 years. And they're at, in the conversations are not awkward or anything. They're actually really cool conversations, and a lot of people are excited that I called. And I'm calling from a place of, hey, I'm just checking in on you. I get we haven't talked in a while. My apologies for not following up, but they're grateful that I'm calling, and I'm not asking for business. And at the end, I have one person said, when this is over, I want to start looking for some properties. But this is just about a time to get in touch with all those people, let them know we care about them, let them know we're thinking about them, let them know we're here. And it's that, to me, that's the thing. And a lot of the other people in my group are doing the exact same thing right now. So it's a great opportunity, Jonathan.
Awesome. Let's get one more person to share from their group.
Jonathan?
Yep.
We talked about some of that as well, and then just using technology as a way to, host open houses, getting creative around that, virtual tours, that type of thing, and most importantly, just being sensitive to all levels of concern from people. We have people that are in full panic mode. We have people that are completely like business as usual. It's not a big deal kind of a mindset. So, we have to just be careful that it's not our decision, it's our clients' decisions, and working around that and using technology as our leverage piece.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to mute the lines out one more time. And then if you have something that you want to share in just a second, feel free to unmute. So I want to close with this thought from Shift, and then I want to tell you what the next step's going to be. Here's what it says. Always be prepared for low tide. I was thinking about, I love to fish. I fish out of a canoe in the marsh from Louisiana. And if you fish in the marsh, one of the things is high tide, low tide. And you always need to be aware of low tide. And I'll never forget, in my canoe, I can get in these really shallow ponds in the marsh. And when the high tide comes in, you're back there and you're fishing, and the fish are in there and you're crushing it. And then if you're not careful, though, I'll never forget, I got my canoe stuck once because I was catching so many trout running out of this little cut in this little pond in the marsh that I wasn't paying attention to the tide falling. And all of a sudden I found myself, once I realized the tide was falling fast and I was trying to get out of there, I got myself stuck. And I was able to get out, but it was really close. And when I tell you, I was like up in the, I'll have to find this picture. I have a picture of it on Facebook of me pushing through the marsh grass with a push pole, trying to get out. And so when I read that last night, I thought of that experience that I had. And there are a lot of agents who still aren't thinking objectively right now. And they're not thinking we're in for a shift and that nothing's going to change. But I'm telling you, it's here, it's happening. Be ready, make the shift, prepare for a low tide, be ready for it, cut your expenses. And then here's the last part of this. Growth comes from clarity, priorities, and focused action. Clarity, priorities, and focused action. The first two deal with how you think. The last deals with what you do. So I want to challenge you to spend some time this week really getting clear on what you want your business to look like on the tail end of this, and getting really clear on what your priorities are, which need to be staying in business right now, building your business so you can stay in business to position yourself to thrive through this. And then focused action. What are the action steps you need to take, and how can you think strategically and think differently than you've been thinking? It's really critical for you to do right now. I have several teams who I'm reaching out to this week. Next week on Wednesday, and I'll post the registration link in the Shift group, I'm doing a mega agent mastermind panel. These are big agents. I just got a confirmation from another group. They sell 600 homes a year. They're going to be on the panel on Wednesday. I'm going to have Andrew Bloom, who you guys got to hear, which was, man, that's just a home run treat to be able to hear Andrew share. And they're going to be sharing. I'm talking to another team that's a couple $1 million GCI, several $1 million in GCI as well. And if I can get them on the panel on Wednesday, you're going to have several big producers who are sharing what they're currently doing right now when it comes to lead generation and lead conversion, and positioning themselves to survive this shift so they can thrive and continue thriving. So you want to be a part of that. Next week, we're going to cover the second tactic, which is remargin your businesses, your expense management. And I would encourage you, it's okay to do extra homework and read ahead. Again, this is not a class where I'm teaching. This, to me, is me getting some good people in front of you to share what they're doing in real world time, and also for us to facilitate conversations, because I think there's so many talented people in this group that you have ideas that you can share with your colleagues that are working, and that's the goal of this. It's just to help all of us navigate through this together. And listen, I'm thankful you're here. I know we have people from multiple brokerages. Thank you for being here. You will hear me mention Keller Williams numerous times because that's who I'm affiliated with. I'm at the same time, you're going to feel very comfortable being a part of this book club, and you can take these tactics and strategies and apply them to where you are, wherever you call home. So please continue to be a part of this. Invite friends to be a part of this. Join the group, Shift, taught by Jonathan Dupree on Facebook if you're not a member of the group. And I will see you guys next week. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.